Oh, Parting streams a lot, and MC's also kind of streaming a lot. So there you go. Guys, it's a best of 5, and after I do the introductions, I will be right back. I really need to get water. In the bottom right is the Orange Zerg, well-versed in TVZ. It is Bly. Team Blazer. Sorry. The top left has the... Oh, his teammate. Oh. Hey, there you go. As the Red Terran, it is Bunny. Now I'm gonna go on... Oh, it pops up under there. Wardy's point of view. Be right back. Alrighty then. Okay, so what do we have here? Nothing, I guess I should have checked if they were proxying. I could have definitely left, and there's 2 rocks proxy on the way. Luckily, they weren't. Cool. We didn't get to see any of Bly's shenanigans as far as proxies, you know, hatcheries or one base openers go. But we might see it here. I mean, Bly's feeling pretty tired because the games are so long. And it's getting to be a long qualifier. Bunny's tired, and I would definitely say more tired because he's up currently at 4:30 in the morning after waking up at 12 or staying awake till midnight. I don't know what he did. And in some ways, like, while doing things make you tired, in some ways, not doing anything makes you more tired. The worst casts, for instance, are when there's long breaks between things, and suddenly you just don't have any energy because I guess the passion's all gone. So, they're both struggling, I guess is my point. But Bunny is the one that was waiting longer without being able to practice, probably. I'm not sure if he was in the chat channel the entire time. Bly's the one that's more warmed up. Maybe he's thinking a little too much about the previous games. Maybe he's already forgotten about them. Can be a sign of a good player, or a good athlete in general, I guess, is like remembering your past failures and choosing to just get over them quickly. Not too many, I guess, traditional sports are extremely like StarCraft in the way that they're played, but somewhere. Anywho. Starport on the way with Hellions. Is right up against that barracks, but no tech lab. Not yet. Just confused. Like, what are you doing? What service is being played on? Europe. Oh, Bunny. Oh, Bunny. Gonna go for a fusion core. He's gonna go for some battle cruiser harassments. Maybe he forgot that at Tech Lab. I'm not sure which one. I'm supposed to have a Tech Lab. But anyways, goes to the starport, so whatever. As long as it gets on there. Overlord is pushed aside. Bly not scared enough of the battle cruiser harassment to go for faster Overlord speed like some other Zergs are doing. This is extremely awkward. Extremely awkward. I was gonna say, as long as he raises the depots, it should be okay. Oh, what? Did I go to someone's vision? Alright, I've been on Wardy's. Get off of it. There we go. So as long as the Lings didn't get into the fusion core and the command center didn't have to be cancelled, which if there weren't any Hellions, it might have had to have been. It's really a sucky situation when it happens, but it does occasionally. No, all is good. All is good. And all is good, despite losing a couple of Hellions. It is, not obvious that it is a battlecruiser rush. There is even a fake cloak started to keep up appearances that there was a Banshee about to pop out. And while Bly will have Spore Crawlers in every base, that only does so much to help you versus the battlecruiser. What, did they talk in chat? Did I miss that? Need Red Bull, need good ping. Oh. Yeah, I left by then. Bunny is going to follow this up with a mech. There's 2 factories on the way. He's going to use that tech lab to transfer over to build some... maybe tanks, but it could be like what Fantasy was showing us, what Ziggy showed us earlier with the same opener into these Cyclones. And you get the upgrade. Battlecruiser already taken out 1 queen. It can take a lot of shots, you know, so even hovering over a Spore Crawler is okay for a certain amount of time. Ideally, this battlecruiser lives for a long time and constantly harasses, and eventually is helped by a second battlecruiser, so on and so forth. Or in this case, by the Hellions, pure and simple. So you don't want to get it injured too much. But these Hellions are really doing God's work here. Bunny is going to be very happy with this trade. He gets 15 drones, a queen, his battlecruiser lives, his Hellions will even continue to get some lings here. Transforming into Hellbats won't make them get very much more, but it does make them last maybe perhaps a little bit longer. Almost lost an Overseer. He did get in as the battlecruiser got in, so he was mostly looking to see and confirm that it was a follow-up of mech. So we have 2 Thors on the way, which would lead me to believe, along with the +1 attack, that this is not going to be the Cyclone version, of which I'm happy about. I just have some personal bias against Cyclones. I think they don't work out more often than they do. He only made 1 battlecruiser, I want to point out here, for anyone looking to perfect their battlecruiser rush, or for any Zergs looking to figure out what the heck Terrans try to do beyond this. And he goes into Banshees. So Banshees obviously more mobile, not nearly as tanky. They got that benefit of that cloak, though. I mean, definitely different reasons to get different units, but I like the follow of the Banshee personally. It's also much faster as far as building time goes. So if they were rushing across the map with a bunch of units, say it's roaches, your battlecruiser can't teleport home quite yet, Banshee would be out in time to barely help. And the battlecruiser attack sound is really cool. Alright, so that Spyro's on the way. I forgot to mention it, but now I see the Mutas have started, so it is Mutas, not Corruptors. We saw Denver earlier try and deal with battlecruisers with Corruptors, but it definitely felt almost unnecessary, and his economy wasn't nearly as strong as Bly's. Not that... I guess strong isn't the right word. It's not as set up. Like, Bly has 5 bases, he is capable of making more drones, but he's also losing a ton, so... it's not exactly perfect. The Mutas reveal themselves, help out a little bit against the Hellions. Bunny, as I mentioned, already has Thors, and he could add on Cyclones to have some type of mobile, more mobile way of dealing with the Mutas. But he's going to go for a push. This is a very oddly timed push, but it's totally going to take advantage of Bly being very weak. He has yet to make any roaches. The Mutas alone will not deal with this army, Viking, Thors, and Battlecruiser combined. Even a couple Marines thrown in here. They almost will? Or will they? That was a good magic box. And Battlecruiser isn't doing as much damage as I thought it was going to. I thought this wouldn't be efficient. Like, maybe he sacrifices most of his Mutas to do this, but I didn't think it would be efficient. And at the end of the day, Bunny still gets that 4th base, 7 drones, and a lot of the Mutas, and even saves the Battlecruiser, so okay, alright. Barely holds on here for Bly, and he does have another 4th base to transfer the drones to, and he's still at 67. But Bunny was able to save a very expensive unit, has a lot of defensive units in case there was a threat of a counterattack. And he's also got a decent number of missile turrets, so he's not playing around with the Muta count. It's down to 7 after some replacements. On our way to Swarm Hosts now. Certainly efficient ways to try and come back in the game, and the Swarm Host being the most efficient. One lock-on for one Muta is typically how things go, so that one Cyclone can help out, certainly. Bunny does not have a lot of scouting here. He saw the Spire, or was it a Spore Crawler? He saw a Spore Crawler. So he hasn't seen the Devastation Pit, which is most important. So he can't even quite think about the Infestors yet, or... Well, I made a lot of Infestors in the past series. He can't think about the Swarm Host yet, but that should be on his mind as to what Bly is transferring into. Is he trying to go into a fast hive? Is he going into Swarm Host? Is he just simply running forward with a bunch of roaches? Well, he is making roaches because he sees a gigantic mech army on the front door. Bunny is at about 170 supply. Not a lot of upgrades on his side. It's a little more of a rush push than you would expect, I think, from a composition like this. But it does make a lot of sense. It scans, sees the Locust. A lot of Blue Flame Hellbats are here. Bly's going to have to make this as efficient as possible by jumping on top of the tanks. He actually jumped on top of the Cyclone. Not sure that was on purpose. Maybe he misclicked the tank. But the point is, as long as it was on the Hellbat, still, as it went down, it wasn't pretty. Bunny gets a good start to the engagement. More Locusts are on the way. But getting caught on the Blue Flame Hellions is just not usually what you want. Mutas have been trying to find something to do, I guess. I missed that. So they kill a couple SCVs, but ultimately get shooed away. Probably by a couple missile turrets. Bunny continues to rally across the map, teleport out with a battlecruiser to save its life. Or, nope, just kidding. He just teleported slightly forward. How was I supposed to know that? Hatchery does go down, and Bly seems like he will simply be too far behind to do anything about it. GG. Bunny doesn't go for the Cyclone mech, but is oddly aggressive with the mech that he chooses. Just continues to capitalize on his advantages. If Bly is given 2-3 minutes, really, to take a chill pill, drone up, take advantage of what almost was 5 bases living, with Mutas buying more time and Swarm Host getting a couple Locust waves out, that's how we see mech players lose a substantial lead. We see it so often. But Bunny didn't allow that to happen. And while that looks like, that was so easy. Bunny played that so well. I think he was still on 3 bases, just as a note there. And there is a chance that Bly, you know, got X or Y thing faster. He maxed out on roaches faster. He got Swarm Host faster. And some of those pushes are, in fact, a little too early. They're not quite the cohesive Terran army that you want. A little too Thor heavy, so on and so forth. But, yeah. Doesn't matter what could have been, because what happened was that Bly lost that game. This is officially the last qualifier match, by the way, so you have plenty of casters to choose from. Well, if you actually enjoy staying around here, then I appreciate it. Blue Shift is our next map. My throat is certainly sore, so I'm really trying not to talk when not necessary. All right. The bottom left, down 1 in the specifive. It is the orange Zerg Bly. On the top right, as the red Terran, it is Bunny. Teammates on the team, Blazer. Pretty new team for StarCraft, at the very least. But two pretty cool pickups. I didn't really get to remark too much on Bunny's playstyle. And mostly, I didn't make it a point to bring it up because it's not like super defining. Fantasy has his playstyle, Innovation has his stereotypical playstyle, Gumio has his mech, right? But Bunny's kind of done all things and has done things well. At some points, he's done things super, super well. Years ago, almost the next best Terran type deal. I say years ago, but really it was like a year and a half ago when, ooh, what was that other tournament that was happening? VSL was going on? Yeah, unfortunately that tournament was kind of, it didn't have much prestige. As good as the players were and some of the games were, VSL just never got very prestigious, so, Impact winning it, for instance, I think most people don't even remember. But yeah, I think when Bunny was on Dust, he was doing well in GSL too, and almost made a big splash there, but just got cut down a little short. So yeah, just, TLDR, you can do all things, you can do it really well. That's why he's gotten so far in these qualifiers, despite being on the European server for, I'm pretty sure it was all of his matches. And he can certainly take on Bly, or perhaps Fantasy couldn't. Reverse that. He can perhaps take on Bly, or Fantasy definitely couldn't, because Fantasy did in fact lose. Reaper opener. Not staring at very much. Not much is going on. No early pool shenanigans from Bly against Bunny so far. Bunny went for the single battlecruiser harassment, which didn't really do a whole ton, but it opened up the opportunity for the Hellion to do a lot, and that's really where Bly ended up falling behind and stayed far behind because he lost more drones, more Hellions, and there were a couple of, pretty weird, unorthodox pushes from the Terran mech player, but they made a lot of sense for the situation that they both were in. I'm not sure that's going to happen again. The battlecruiser harassment or the Hellions getting nearly as much damage done. That's really something that most pro Zerg players are like, okay, like, you tricked me, right? Or, okay, that was just silly. I should not have let that happen. A lot of the first 7 minutes of a ZVT is literally like, I don't want the Hellions to do any damage. Like, literally nothing, ideally. No creep tumors killed, no queens killed, no lings killed even, right? You just force them to be units that kind of stay on the edge of creep and look pretty. So. Shouldn't be happening again, but we always have our other versions of any whatever attack to keep Bly on his toes, such as the Armory, Hellbat attack. Banshees in general can still be a little pesky to deal with if that's all he wants to go for. And I guess Bunny could again open up with a battlecruiser harassment. It seems to be decent enough. And I know there are some Zerg players who get more and more comfortable against it or have a couple of builds against it once they start going, okay, you're just going to do this all the time. Which seems to be what Bunny's going to do. Second game, second Fusion Core. Tech Lab added to the starport after a Viking? Or was it a Liberator? It was nothing. Just kidding. I'm making things up. I'm going crazy. Third CC was seen slightly before the Overlord died, but that's not really what you want to see. There are very, very few 2-base situations for Terran players in this matchup. You really want to see what the other tech structure is, if it's an armory, if it's a fusion core, and if there's cloak on the way, kind of the big things to notice. I guess also, like, hey, Stim started, is it more than 6 Hellions, so on and so forth. Without a tech lab on the barracks, could still be added on later on, but there might be an inclination for Bly to say, okay, you're gonna do the battlecruiser thing again, because this looks a lot like it did last game. The Overlord is going to get far enough back in to see the fusion core, but does Bunny actually care? As far as the battlecruiser, again, as far as the lone battlecruiser went, it didn't do a lot of damage. It was just not having any lings on the proper side of the map that did so much. Speaking of which, Hellion's trying to dodge and weave here. We have a much faster Roach Warren, and that'll be a little more helpful to just let them stand in one place and take care of any Hellion run-bys. Spore Crawlers, again, because while they're a necessity against the cloaked Banshees, they also can be maneuvered around, or to simply, they could even stay put and help against the battlecruiser, as we saw in the last game, Bunny couldn't chase after a couple queens, a couple drones, because he would just go over the Spore Crawler for far too long. And he's gonna come back to help out the queens. Baby's helping their mamas. Well, they're gonna go to the main? Wait, it's not the opposite of what he wanted? Okay, there we go. I was gonna say, usually the battlecruiser teleports into the main, so the queen's gonna be there. It's not an always case. Like, they could go to the third base and still have an exit path, and that's kind of the most important thing about the battlecruiser warp in, is do they go someplace that has an exit path. So in this case, very conservative. In between the main and the third base, and he just goes to the drone line. You can just get out super easily. When he goes once again into mech, I wouldn't be surprised if he's, you know, really... Maybe the battlecruiser opener appeals to him, and he just likes it, and mech is a good follow-up to it. But I also wouldn't be surprised if he was thinking about ways to conserve his energy, considering it is almost 5 in the morning in Korea. And everyone's going to take this as a balance complaint, or a design complaint. I guess I don't care anymore. Mech is certainly a bit easier to handle than bio. Aliens do get in once again. Not nearly as many drone kills. 6 less drone kills. And Bly is once again on those 4 bases, so he can replace those, but it just sucks to lose drones, as always. But much better handling this game. If he didn't scout directly that it was mech, that is the assumption. Okay, he scouted it directly. Spire is on the way. Is he gonna go for the mutas again? You know, last game Bunny went directly into 2 Thors, but this game he did not do that. Where was that Banshee? Well, this was a very odd roach attack. This wasn't a ton of roaches. It didn't have any support versus anti-air. I think it was just attempting to be a gotcha move. Ling's attempts capitalize on it, just like Bunny did with his Hellions and Battlecruiser. Doesn't end up working out. Ends up getting 4 Lings, but costs a lot of units for it. Cheap units, sure, and Bly is repairing his economy, but still. Not what he wanted. Thors are now on the way, so as the Spire finished up here, was it scanned? It's not even being used.
Mineral field
it was scanned.
depleted.
Alright, so Thors are being made, missile turrets as well. Bly would have known that it was scouted, however it was scouted, so maybe he was going to go and try and go into mutas. It no longer is the case. It is right into the Corruptors, which... I mean, I gotta bring up Denver again. Denver tried doing this, and maybe off a worse economy, he was a lot later to his 4th base, and that was already hurting him. I think the point is, the Corruptors really aren't that useful. If you go for a huge swell of roaches with the Corruptors, then it's useful. But you really have to have, like, a lot of roaches to overcome what is now being built as a ground army for Bunny. You know, the idea being that the Corruptors kill the Battlecruiser and the Banshee so quickly that the roaches don't have anything just, you know, free firing on them, and then they can tackle whatever's on the ground, but the whatever is on the ground part is actually substantial for a Terran player. He even has a 4 missile turret a year, which is really nice little thing to put in. But Bly did not go for the max out on roaches. Again, maybe that was his plan. Maybe that was something he was thinking of. But it's actually going into the 5th base, infestation pit, maxing out his overlords, and it is going into that more typical mech, as we see Bunny not able to push forward around the 140 supply, and probably not going to push forward around 170 either. He might truly wait for the max out with +2 attack. More typical timing for TDZ. Hellions now have blue flame, so they'll always be a threat to the drone line, but just 5 going down there. A lot of creep spreads can help negate that, as you see it far in advance. Corruptors could be used to pee on some buildings. They could be used just to snipe a single battlecruiser, and that battlecruiser, I mean, it's a honker, you know, like it's gonna soak up a lot of stuff, and it's gonna just stay in the air too, if it's left alone, dealing however much damage it can. It's like not the most important unit anymore, but if you can just go ahead and snipe that, it would be a bit of a relief. I was wrong. Bunny is not gonna wait for the max out of +2. He is gonna push, but still, like basically after 150, the world is your oyster, I suppose, for a mech player. At this point, you kind of have the cohesiveness with your army, hopefully anyways. So the Corruptors will be useful for taking out the Banshees, which are going to add a lot of DPS. But Bly is once again caught trying to transition into Swarm Host. They're maybe a little bit late, but all the Hellbats have died here. In fact, they got dragged forward into the Roach Ravager, which is the best case scenario for our Zerg. I don't think he should be running forward with the Roach and Ravagers, but he wanted to get the Corrosive Biles off, and maybe that was ultimately worth it. But the Locusts also looked like they were doing the job, so that's why I'm like, maybe you could have saved those expensive units. Ravagers being expensive, not so much Roaches. 16 Roaches on the way. Bunny continuing to rally forward, but he did not win like he was thinking he would. That was not a winning push. So, whereas last game, it was a genius move. His constant aggression really worked out. This time, That push got stopped in its tracks, and he is now the one recovering. So 4th base is on the way, but at a pretty late time for what you usually see. In actually a lot of TVCs nowadays. Even bio players getting faster 4th CCs. So it's going to be a long time before it's planted on location as a planetary. A lot of opportunities for the swarm hosts to let loose their locusts and really start to build up their efficiency, I guess. Greater Spire is also on the way. Bly was transitioning to swarm host. He was also adding on the hive. And of course, he already had that spire. We know that. So this is a scary timer for our Terran player. Roaches being a nuisance, Swarm Host being a nuisance. The army was out maneuvering around as if it was a bio player. It definitely could backfire on him. It now shows itself to the hatchery here. Bly could have potentially tried to run in more, but there was a battlecruiser dealing damage to him that he could not take care of. So he's going to go ahead and just turn around, come back. Maybe he could take it on the army, but decides not to do that. Yeah, I guess he couldn't. That's not enough roaches. But it's not really about that 5th base. He's got a 6th base on the way. He's starting to bank cash anyways. Still on 75 workers, and the Greater Spire is really what his goal is. And does Bunny have a really solid option against that? Now, his planetary is moved over about as quickly as possible. I assume it's going to be a planetary. And that means a 12-minute 4th is not terrible. But he's been building up that army for a long time, and it's not necessarily been with a lot of anti-Broodlord units. Now we have a couple of Thors being added in. The Viking count can be useful, especially if it's a silly Zerg that doesn't have Corruptors or Vipers. But honestly, as soon as the Zerg player realizes that you have that air defense, the air response to Broodlords, they're going to add in Parasitic Bombs. They're going to add in Corruptors. And it's going to be a really tough time. I'm not sure where he's sending them to. Oh, okay. Corruptors are on the way. Bunny is hitting just before Broodlords are ready, I believe. He's not quite maxed out, but this time he does have +2 and a 4th base to give him a little bit of a boost in case he loses this army. Hellbats are on the wrong side of things, but not a lot of tanks were over there, so most of the locusts get hit rather well by the tanks. It's usually an issue of tanks firing on top of each other, but not there. 17 drones go down, and while Bly is banking a ton of money, he does not have that perfect air army to go yet. In fact, he's going to lose his Vipers, one shot by the amount of Vikings. Bunny hitting a very critical timing here. Bly has so much money in the bank. He has so much room to recover from this if he could just hold. But can he do that? Transfuse is desperately coming into the Corruptors. Is that, again, that count is just so damn low. He has too much supply and other things that he can't have a nice balance of both Corruptors and Broodlords. Swarmos taking up most of it, and he would have already wanted to have gotten rid of them in a very efficient way. But now he can't get rid of them. There is last hope to survive this, along with a max out of Roach Hydra. It does not seem to be working out too well. Corrosive Bios do hit tanks, but they also sacrifice themselves to do it. Queen's now going down to the Hellbats, and this might just be the push that Bunny was hoping for as he's rallying across the middle of the map. He's going to catch the Swarm Hosts without any locusts to pop off. Corrosive Bios desperately going down. Bunny is losing out on the supply, but he's catching Bly's reinforcements. Things are still very, very scrappy, and Bly always has that option to recover. He has so much in the bank. He still has a decent amount of drones, and he has that Broodlord tech. But he just can't quite get to it. Everything's currently going into Ravagers. He's building up that ground army again, and Bunny cannot just push his way forward here. It's still a little too much coming out from the Zerg player. But for a second, it was looking promising. If Bly can demolish this army, I think he'll be able to really take a lead in this game. The Swarm Hosts come in, the Locusts are very efficient, the Corrosive Biles are absolutely perfect. Not even the Corrosive Biles really, it's just the Ravagers themselves, not dying to the tanks as fast as the tanks died to everything else. And while Bunny is still going to play this game out, and he is maybe going to take out this base, Bly can now slap down 3 hatcheries at a time. He can finally go into his Broodlords, and Bunny has to replace not just his ground army, but also an army that can take on Broodlords. Really close stuff here. Ooh, a really nice Helling run by? Nah, not quite. I'm thinking Bly's having a larva problem. A little bit. He lost hatcheries after all in those queens. I don't see any Broodlords on the way. This is making me really worried. I think Bunny's going to be fine defensively against Bly's ground army. Well, it's a little scary still. Bunny's not exactly at a good supply, but I think it's a better chance that he survives the ground army because he is making tanks and Hellbats than if Bly had gone right up to his Broodlords. Did I miss the Greater Spire going down or something? No? No, he hasn't. I mean, there's a couple reasons not to go for Broodlords directly before it sounds like I'm harping on him for it. One, if you think that Bunny does have a follow-up attack, then you want to be able to max out and be safe on your Roach Ravager Hydra, Swarmhost, a bunch of different things in there. And two, if you thought that there would be a timing to hit, time might be the wrong word, that there might be a supply to hit. Like, you will just simply going to max out faster than your opponent, and as such, you're going to end the game right here, right now. You don't have to wait for Broodlords. That train of thought is not bad, but as you can see, it's not really working out. Bunny barely has enough, and a proper composition as well against this one. Although he does move forward here. It's a little aggressive. Looks like it's going to work out too. Bly's now going to transfer over into the Corruptors. Maybe this still works out in Bly's favor. Like, this trade, I guess ultimately, Bunny takes out... Well, no, actually, it's like a... It's not great for the mech player. And it's not really that bad for Bly. In fact, it's good for Bly. He's now forced Bunny to have to remake even more ground army. It's always hard for Bunny to tell exactly what Bly's going to go into. And Bly has the option now go into a Greater Spire. Well, he has one. To go into Broodlords. To take on what he assumes is not going to be a lot of anti-air. Yeah, that overall just wasn't good for Bunny. I'm surprised he was so aggressive. I mean, I was surprised in the first place he moved out. And he took an okay engagement, and then he just kept going. And I was like, oh, is that the right call? I don't know. I guess just trying to take advantage of the Locust being on cooldown. Didn't really work out. Didn't really work out. This is all not really working out. Bunny is trying to expand, but this is not a 5th base. It is his main. He's been trying to play sort of an almost all-in mech style. Really playing on the, you know, razor's edge of losing the game with one bad attack. Which has almost happened now 2-3 times. And only barely limping along here because he can barely afford a 4th base. He can barely get his command center over here without being harassed. That should change in due time as Bly gets to his army max out. Whatever it is. He should be sending roaches or lings or anything over there. It is an easy pick-off once Bly realizes that it's on location. Bly has a lot of creep to make up for. He's missing it between his bases. He doesn't have a lot of queens either. In fact, he has only 2 queens. So his larva could be a problem, although it's not now. So, you know, yeah, creep tumor. And even he realizes that he's preferring the creep over the injects, bridging this gap and restarting it. He's got some active creep tumors, maybe? Not just one. A couple over here. Finally, some Broodlords are on the way, but this has been kind of the longest lull we've had. This Bunny got his 5th base up. It should be harassed. It's not currently. So Bunny is now trying to get an answer to the Broodlords, and Bly is trying to get the Broodlords, and enough of them too, so that even if Bunny has an answer, Bly is basically saying you can never have an answer if I get like 12 Broodlords and 4 Vipers and a handful of Corruptors. Kind of what we saw versus Fantasy, right? It's like at certain points, at certain numbers of Broodlords, they're actually not that scary. But once you get to a certain amount comboed with spellcasters, they are the scariest thing in the world. And again, like we saw with Fantasy, Bunny is not going into Thors to try and deal with this. He is going into Cyclones, which, I mean, there's so many things that could have happened differently in that Fantasy versus Bly game 1 that I'm not going to say it's a bad move. But I've always contributed this to being kind of a desperate move. Like, Gumiho was transferring into Cyclones before and after the patch. Deal with Broodlords, and it works if you're hitting a very crisp timing where there's not a lot of Broodlords, there's maybe limited economy for the Zerg player, you know, you're kind of already on even footing or even better footing than the Zerg, then it works. But when you're both giving each other a lot of time and you're both maybe choosing, you know, seeing where the battle's going to come in and being able to position your units, I don't think Cyclones are the way to go. The Fantasy showed that they can be efficient, they can go around, run around the Broodlord army. That was what brought him back into game number 1 in an hour and 20-minute long game. I can't remember what happened. And that is an option for Bunny as well. Now, Bunny, surprisingly, has got this 5th base up and protected. I can't believe this actually happened. He's also getting a 6th base that is new, so it's going to turn into a planetary. And there's a chance that Bly simply will never move past this base to take on this one, even though still, like, 30 Lings would probably take this on. If they're upgraded too. But I guess, really, not, like, fantastic upgrades for either player. They both got the +3 attack, which is impressive, but not much else here. No Carapace for Bly. Bunny only just now adding on his vehicle armor. Really good fungal there. Because a lot of the medevacs, and you see that many medevacs, you gotta figure they have Hellbats in them. They do. Here come the Broodlords. What is their number? It is 9 Broodlords. Now that's a decent amount. It's not quite like, oh my god, there's too many Broodlings, but it's a decent amount. Oh, there's no Corruptors. Okay, so that's a bit of an issue. There's no Corruptors to make sure Vikings don't get pot shots on it. You can only depend on their Hydras and Infestors so much for that. Parasitic Bomb will help take out the Vikings, but yeah, you really need to get in there with your own anti-air to feel very confident. Apparently, Bunny's feeling confident enough to stay here. He's taking out the base. He might take out this base. He will take out this base, but maybe not the drones. Oh, no, drones, wrong way. No. Okay. Hellbat drops aren't really looking that useful. In fact, it might be a bit of a waste of supply, as you want the Hellbats guarding whatever you have on the ground against the Broodlings, whether it was Cyclones or Thors. Yeah, now Bunny is forced to retreat. Hey, Medevac's being useful. Pick up the tanks. Bunny on his way to 2 more starports, continuing to build Cyclones and get the armor upgrades. Armor upgrades are definitely the right call. They're going to help against the Broodlings that don't have super good upgrades. But, yeah, I'm just worried about his actual composition. Bly lost 2 hatcheries, but has now... Well, one's done, the other one's building, so he's kind of replacing them. He had this issue versus Fantasy's Bio on this map where he couldn't get the extra bases, but it should be a little bit different up against Mech. Especially because Bunny is not really playing the run-around game like Fantasy was. He is looking for the direct engagements. Bly should at least be able to get these 2 bases up, I think. Bunny will have to constantly keep tabs on this. And all it really does take is 3 Hellions per hatchery until they start building Spine Crawlers. You don't need to overcommit, and you shouldn't overcommit your Hellions in case they end up attacking you and you don't have enough Hellbats to protect against the Broodlings. For now, it'll be enough. He just has to be consistent here. And even, you know, here you go. It took like a minute to tear down that hatchery, but it happens. Scan for the base, scan for the army. Either way, the army's over here. While those bases aren't replaced, there's other bases, so... Bunny can only feel so confident about Bly's economic situation. Neither of them are quite there to be super comfortable, especially if Bunny loses this base, but... Neither of them are super desperate yet, either. A couple SCVs go down. It looks like Bunny is going to go for it. Fungals go off on some of the Vikings, not the Medevacs, but the Medevacs don't reach their targets anyways. Broodlords just desperately running back, aren't shooting any Broodlings anymore. The Blue Flame Hellbats are fantastic at cleaning it up, but oh, there's the snapback. Fungal on top of a lot of Hellbats. Medevacs now all gone as well, and that was a bit of a long battle StarCraft 2-wise, but good control from both players ends up going ultimately in Bly's favor. As now that the Hellbat count is being thinned out, Bunny desperately trying to rebuild those. He has no real option against the Broodlords, and that's been the problem for a while. As soon as his Vikings didn't work out, the Cyclones should not have worked out, and there's nothing else here to even try. I'm a little surprised, honestly. I'm a little shocked that these Korean Terrans aren't trying Thors at all, considering they were literally nerfed against mutas, so that at least they could have a buff against Broodlords. I mean, that's not the reason they had it, but that's what happened. That was a trade-off. Thors are supposed to be better against the Broodlords, but they're still not very confident. And there are issues to the Thor composition, the Thor way of dealing with Broodlords as well. I just figured would have seen it attempted. That's all. A strong feeling that Bly's going to win this game. He's up 60 supply. He has recovered his economy, defending it mostly from the Hellion attacks. Slowly but surely getting up to that max supply, and he has got Bunny's, well, one of his last mining bases on the ropes, I guess. This one mostly mined out. This one's still okay, but yeah, this one is the most important one. has been on a very low drone count thanks to all these Howling run-bys. He just tried replacing some of them, but... Smite colors only work so much. I think Bly's composition is just too good. I guess it's a little less scary than it really is, because we have Swarm hosts here that may or may not contribute to the fight, but if they are contributing to the fight, then it's very scary. Not quite enough Hydras up there. They're gonna need some support, but Bly is certainly well versed. He's very experienced against what Bunny is throwing at him. He's throwing exactly what Fantasy was throwing at him, except without as many run-bys. As many Cyclone run-bys anyways. Bunny's still holding on strong to this planetary. Slowly adding on his own units, but it's all Cyclones, and I'm just like, is that really going to do the trick, man? Lock-on will shoot through Blinding Cloud, right? That was an assumption I was making. I'm pretty sure I'm right about that. But that's one of the reasons why Thors can be difficult against Broodlords, that even if you have enough Hellbats to chew through the Broodlings at a pretty decent rate, a couple of Blinding Clouds will really ruin your day. How many drones have died this game? Looks like he recently got over the 100 mark. There you go. 107 drones have died, keeping Bunny in this game, compared to just the 28 SCVs. And Bunny's not quite done. He is now using his mobile army, just like Fantasy was, to maneuver around the map, make sure there's no extra bases being taken willy-nilly, and to kill the bases currently taken, and still somewhat healthy with mining. So these aren't cheap bases to give up, man. Vikings are trapped in that fungal, and oh, there's a parasitic bomb as well. Ooh, ouchie, ouchie, ouch, 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 ouch. Cyclones aren't even here on the front lines to help out. Not that they would do a great job at it. That's always been the question. They're over here destroying bases, and not even looking for the tech structures of the Zerg player, but they are caught by the army. Look at me split, come over here with all that creep spread. The fungal almost caught a lot of them too. Accidentally. Because that's on creep server. Ducks are kind of funny because we haven't seen them mostly. It's been about parasitic bombs, but they are useful. But oh, hold on a second. No spore crawlers to help out the Broodlords. Luckily, the queens were there. Bunny saw a glimmer of hope, but it quickly was diminished, and Bly does take game number 2. No, I'm out of water again. I'm not even sure what everyone is saying I got wrong. I'm sure I said things that were wrong. I'm not sure specifically what's been talked about. It seems to be just because I said that spine crawlers, when spine crawlers get up and running, that Hellion run buyers won't be as good, which I don't think is a false statement. Next map's gonna be Kairos Junction. I wonder if Parasite's in the map pool. They did this by vetoes, so there's 2 vetoed maps. Probably Stasis and maybe Parasite. Okay. What's the pin lights from Created EU? I don't know the actual numbers, but I'm gonna go with pretty bad. If Bunny had been able to grab more of an economy and like build up the cyclones, like he might have won out. Like Bly was struggling to get back up to like 50, 55 drones even. And maybe if he had a better composition, but I never figured the cyclones were gonna do the trick. But I'm also a bit of a hater, so I like to give them more of the benefit of the doubt when the Koreans make them. But, like, I don't know. I would love to see a game where we do see the attempt to go Thors, just to compare and contrast and be like, okay, alright, gotcha. Like, maybe they are the choice or maybe they aren't the choice. In the top left, as the orange Zerg, it is Bly. Finally going for that pool first against Bunny. And for the bottom right, as the red Terran, he is Bunny. Korea versus Europe. With good ping, Bunny could theoretically kill Bly with his first 16 Marines. Well, anyone can kill anyone, theoretically, with his first 16 Marines. But I think the point of your comment there, good sir, was that you think Bunny is a substantially better player, and I think you're wrong. Does Bly sometimes lose to some silly, like, you know, 2-on-1s? Yeah. But so did Dark and Sue when Byun was doing 2-on-1s to perfection. Otherwise, I think that Bly always has a shot against any Korean that he was up against. Both in a macro game as well as in just like, hey, I got a couple of cheeses on you. So the SCV scout's gonna kind of ruin Bly's plan here, but you know what? Fantasy also SCV scouted, and Bly was quite clever. I always kind of wondered why 4 Lings was ever made. It's like 2, and you hope you aren't scouted, get the kill on the SCV. There you go. 6, hope you're not scouted, maybe you even get the cancel on the command center. Boom, that's what you want. 4, it's like in between, but not better at either one than 2 or 6, you know what I mean? So I always wonder about the 4. But I like the way that Bly uses it. He splits them up so that the Reaper, even if there was one, oh, there it is, wouldn't catch all of them. Neither would an SCV scout. So the Ling gets in here. It'll eventually die. It's not seeing too much that it wouldn't already figure out. Maybe it sees that it's not a 3rd CC build, I guess. These Lings are not allowed inside. This one would love to see like exactly what gets built in the starport, but that's a long ways away. This was certainly a distraction for Bunny. This took a long time to clean up. There was a long delay on his command center. Very well worth, and that's exactly what he's trying to avoid by SCV scouting. So very nicely done by Bly. He was able to get his 3rd base up, no problem, no harassment done, and is on his way to speed. You need 107 spines. Thank you very much for the bits. So things looking quite similar. They both have an approximate knowledge of what their opponent is doing. Bunny has gone for 2 battlecruiser openers. This game, not so much. Goes right into Liberator. Little floaty barracks. Kill that Overlord. We do have a, I want to say, substantial number of lings being made. Now, it might only be because half go to wait and the other half are here in case the Hellions do try to run by. I believe that is going to be the case. It's either that or all of them come to this side of the map and they try and surround the Hellions when Bunny isn't looking. And, well, hold on here. There you go. If you can do that, you can get a even a pool of the SCVs away from the natural, which would be really devastating. Okay, so he's going to wait for the Hellions to leave, and all the lings are going to try and enter in. There are so many lings that they can now sack 1 or 2 to kill this command center, so it's totally worth it. Well, it had the same effect with half the lings, but the Hellions are forced to pull back anyways, so no fear of losing drones on his side of the map. Hellions come back. Lings barely get away, about half of them. Liberator does some damage. Not as much as Bunny was hoping for. Bly has been more on top of Bunny's base than Bunny's been doing anything to Bly. No Spore Crawler, though, to help take care of this easy peasy. It's a little annoying. That's lost mining time. Lost second chance fuse. Oh, lordy. Hellions now make their way across the map looking for some revenge, or at least some creep tumors. Does Bly know about Bunny's choice to go bio? He does indeed. He got up there and saw the barracks being built. Bit of a late Banshee here, almost a safety Banshee, as it doesn't have any cloak on it, which can help against roach attacks that you weren't expecting. And there are, in fact, roaches being made. Lair 2. But seeing roaches, I was going to be a little bit worried about that. And the Banshee would secure, like, really secure Bunny against the, any potential roach follow-up. So a ling attack like this, which once again is on top of the command center. It doesn't have the most surface area possible, but it's still just barely enough to out-DPS the building time. Fortunately for Bunny, does not have to cancel. This would have been a substantial cancel. And it's exactly why Bly bothered to... Bly bothered to sack all of his lings to try and get that. Now, once it's done, you can lift it, and it's kind of out of harm's way, so we don't have to worry about these roaches popping forward and getting a snipe on that, you know, on like a Nexus or a hatchery. But it was almost worth it for Bly there. Spore Crawlers, because he saw the Banshee. He doesn't know that's only one, doesn't know that's not cloaked. Yeah, he's going to have to cancel the orbital. That's the one thing that could have happened, is that Bunny gets a little overconfident. Although... Oh, it wasn't one Banshee, it was 2, my bad. Alright, so... I realized at the last second there that it's possible that not just having to raise the cancel the orbital, raise the command center, it was possible that the Marines also would have died to that many roaches. That wasn't quite the case, and the Banshees came back anyways. But that was another reason I think why we saw Bly dedicate to that. He saw an opening. I keep, like, emphasizing the reasons why he would dedicate to that, because overall I do think Bly has now lost any lead he might have gotten by doing so many attacks such as those. That was a lot of roaches to give away. We're not getting the command center and really not getting that many Marines, which at this point are being cranked out rather steadily. So if we look at the actual supplies, you know, I think that, you know, that would make me look smart. You know, even on workers, not great for the Zerg player. Late 4th base, not great for the Zerg player. Banking minerals and gas, because they probably have a larva problem, not great for the Zerg player. Behind in 1-1. I mean, everything's not going Bly's way, even though he's trying to control the game. And initially, right, the first couple Lings attacks were doing that. The next 2 attacks did not do that, and in fact, it probably hurt him far more. One thing I can say for Bly is that he has good creep spread. He's got them all avenues covered just about. But this drop goes unseen for such a long time, and the roaches are still slow units overall. And then it grabs a couple drones, grabs a queen, does manage to lead, and might even get a cancel.
Game paused.
Oh, I thought he was going to GG. I was like, that's a oddly early GG for Bly. Even though things are looking grim, it doesn't matter for Bly. Like, he will stay in it till the end.
Game resumed.
Alright, so what was I saying? Alright, this base might be canceled as well. And it is going to be canceled. No way to save that. Can't transfuse a building. And it's going to keep on hopping back and forth, back and forth. Queens are hoping to snipe the medevac before it landed. Doesn't work out that way. It's also a very important snap back to the main base, not just to add some damage, but also to see that a hive is on the way. Bly going for something that he has been known for in certain metas, certain points of Legacy of the Void, which is a really fast hive. This isn't the fastest hive we've seen, but it's still pretty damn fast. And should Bunny not have realized that was the case, maybe he's a little more hesitant to push forward with a push, even though it's doing well, because he thinks, well, this can't possibly be all that Bly has. But now that he knows, and he also knows he's in a good position, he will just simply run forward onto creep. No worry there, no bailings to be seen, and roaches don't benefit that much against Terran for that creep spread. Kills the third base. Bly's going to be in a very limited economy, although his bank looks impressive. It's something that he's been holding up for a couple of minutes. That's why it looks as big as it does. I guess his ultimate goal was to be able to afford as many ultras as possible, but it's not going to work out, I don't think. The thing about ultras is even when they're upgraded, and he's going for melee, not carapace? Oh, he already has carapace, okay. Yeah, the thing about ultras is that if they're mostly alone, they're mostly bad. You really need something else complicated in there. Usually lings and banelings. If it's roaches, it's still kind of just as easy. You just focus fire the ultras, run away from the and kite and whatnot. Infestors, that's where Bly's looking to get the really good cost efficiencies. That the infestors fungal everything here, and the ultras and corrosive bios get the attacks. Ooh, those are good fungals. But the corrosive bios don't really hit as well as he was hoping for. Tanks weren't siege to even try to hit those. And while it was a good fungal, it overall was still in a bit of a concave, and Bunny doesn't take supreme damage from that. Roach is now being made, but Bly, I think, is still purposefully holding on to money. Nope, doesn't have any larva. Larva has now officially become a problem. He's trying to build up his hatchery. He's trying to use that money, but he can't. And while ultras are definitely larva efficient, I don't know if he's going to have time to get to them. Bunny hitting a very crisp attack here, is already on his way to his 4th CC and just continuing to rally across the map. He's going to have 2-2 far ahead of his opponent. Bunny's army on the front lines is thinning away a little tiny bit. He does still have more tanks in the backside, and all he really needs at this point probably is bio anyways. Accidental Swarm Host is being made as Bly is hurriedly pressing all the buttons. A mule is dropped. Ooh, Bunny. Ooh, Bunny. Most of his army is severely overstimmed, so he's got to pick up and get out of there. But it's only to reinforce. Or be reinforced. Oh, this looks like it's going to be it. 2 ultras are about to pop, and they will have chitinous plating, but they will not take on how many marauders and tanks there are left over. Sure, the medevacs are getting a little dry, and the army's a little overstimmed, but does that really help? He's even using the Accidental Swarm Host to some effect. Way to go, Accidental Swarm Host. And this will be a 2-1 lead for our Korean Terran in the European server qualifiers. Easy peasy snipe on the ultras. GG. Bly falls down a game and is now on match point. Ooh. Almost there, guys. I don't think he meant to invite me to a party. Potential last game. Could be on Cerulean Falls. Well, this game is on Cerulean Falls. Maybe it's the last game. Let's see how things are ended here. In the top right, down a game. It is the Orange Zerg Bly. In the bottom left, as the Red Terran, he is Bunny. As you can see, if you're looking at the brackets, this is the last qualifying spot of today. Tomorrow, they will all be qualifying for actual entrance into the tournaments later on in February by facing off against 8 invited players from the WCS circuit. So, well, invited, I guess they were... I mean, invited's the wrong word, basically, but they were seeded into the next stage of the qualifiers based off the results of the WCS circuit. There we go. Better way to put it. So the likes of Hero Marine, Showtime, Lambo, I think, Thermal, and some others I can't remember right now. All are waiting for tomorrow. And all they gotta do is sit back and watch who makes it out of here. They have some fierce opponents. I don't have any super favorites, I guess. I have people that I want to win, but considering this is the first real tournament qualifier, offline tournament qualifier, the biggest tournament too, people really, really, really want to go to. There's so much prestige as well as so much money. And also, in pro gamers' minds, I think also the fairest tournament that there is with how long it is and how many group stages and whatnot, that it attracts everyone, right? Like, WCS is important, but sometimes you get that person who's like, why even bother? I think they bother for IAM, even if they know they're going to get squashed by Bunny or whoever else. And the Koreans really, really love it too. I mean, it's like right now the only global tournament, so it makes sense that they would really like it. Actually, I'll bring this chat discussion up on stream because I think it's a little more complicated. The thing about Bly is that most of the time you look at his mechanics, and he won't say that he's one of the top 10 players, right? His mechanics at sometimes can even look quite bad, to be honest. But his approach to the game has always made it so that he can get very far in tournaments. And even has been, and he's still pretty damn good that he can be consistent in tournaments, even if some people would say that his playstyle causes a lot of inconsistency. So maybe people get offended when I say that skill level, I guess, could be close to Bunny. And maybe they're right as far as mechanical skill. But I was talking about chances to beat Bunny, in my opinion, are quite close, no matter what the opposing circumstances are. Server lag and whatever. Bunny is once again going to go into a fusion core for this map. I don't know what's about last map triggered him to go bio, but he did. He could possibly go bio after this, but it is the less likely of the two options, past Battle Cruiser opener. He sees the tech lab on the starport, and everything looks like it's going to be the fusion core again, and in fact it is the fusion core. Someone's saying it's funny how pro gamers don't split their workers at the start, or say splitting workers at the start doesn't make a difference, but they still do it. One is habit, perhaps. Like, it feels cool to do it. I remember when I first learned how to do it, I felt like a boss. The other is that on enough maps, anyways, I don't know about how many exactly, but enough maps, splitting your workers is a necessity. Like, otherwise they will truly have really terrible mining. So it's better to keep in the habit. There was one map, like, 2 map pools ago, where workers would literally go behind the mineral lines if he didn't. 50% of the time. Third CC is on the way, and hey, it is going to be transferring over into bio past the battle cruisers, so Bly has got to make sure he's not caught up in what he thinks is going to happen, and that he does, in fact, get the scout down. Now, I'm liking what Bly's doing here. He went for a decently timed layers, already on his way to roach speed, has a lot of queens and spore claws out defending against the battle cruisers, but he's making a ton of roaches. Now, that might seem counterintuitive, but the roaches could do a lot of damage when the battle cruiser is ready, especially if the battle cruiser teleports away. Now, I think Bly might have made a mistake by showing his roaches like he just did, and showing them moving across the map too. Maybe even he recognized that. Because the battle cruiser is not teleporting forward, it is waiting to see the roaches come across the map. So, no longer am I hyped about the roach busts. It's not going to be the case anymore. Bly's on his way to a spire now, which I'm really worried won't quite be worth it. This is bad news for Bly, but he manages to barely make it a not catastrophe. Only 6 drones go down, but it's only 6 drones when really Bly didn't have many to begin with, so it's quite bad. I think as far as Bly's game plan has gone, it's already been messed up. So to then lose more drones off the back of that. So he instantly builds 14, and you know, as soon as he gets a solid setup here with the mutas, I guess, is that what he's gonna do? Then we'll try and go into a 4th base and so on. Actually, he's gonna go ahead and grab it now. But I'm scared, man. Like, Bly was kind of looking like he was setting up for something a lot more aggressive, and just not be able to do it at all is bad news. Bunny's got his 3rd CC up and running with some good saturation. Bly does manage to catch the Marines before combat shields, before medevacs were here, so he takes an okay-ish trade, but not really. Scan reveals the Spire. 9 meters on the way. Bly had a lot of success against Fantasy with the Spire on this exact same map, but will Bunny let it snowball like that? There's also a very different build, so Bly's not able to start the snowball process as fast, even though things are a lot more complicated in the Fantasy game anyways. But we'll see what happens, you know? It's one spot that's not quite defended. Suddenly things get a little hectic. Suddenly Bunny loses out on the timing he was hoping to have. Now, Queens are going to take on the battle cruiser, but it's still had teleportation. This drop in the main is doing quite a bit of damage. Bly finally got up to a decent worker count, but now back down to 63. He's not terrible, but he's going to be looking for some revenge with these mutas. 7 more mutas are on the way. Battle cruiser is going to be able to help out. The thing is, the battle cruiser won't die to the mutas. Is the really silly thing, is that they can never take it on. So you could probably just plant that battle cruiser in the main base and be like, well, this is protected. Not until the mutas go much higher in supply and you get a couple upgrades, I think. Which, speaking of upgrades, Bunny already on 1-1. A little late to his combat shields and a little late to his armory as well. But Bly has only just started his +1 carapace. Just now getting a Baling Nest. He's probably going to have to hope, again, either the mutas really do a lot here, or Bunny thinks he's in a good position and gets a little overconfident and runs into a bunch of Banelings, which can certainly happen because Bly will have at least one thing on his side, and that is creep spread. This is where it goes down pretty quickly, this many mutas. 15 or just about. Some reinforcing, I guess. Good target fire from our Terran player as Bly gets a little sloppy here. He wasn't all combined together, but he is taking on the Marines on purpose at this point. Going to take on a couple of medevacs as well. The SCV damage was revenge, I suppose, for earlier drone damage, but he has lost track of a couple of units. 2 medevacs off to the right side. Battlecruiser off to the left side, but Muta is still getting some SCV damage. They do not want to leave quite yet, but they're going to be forced to leave, especially because Bunny is trying to build more missile turrets to really make sure this doesn't happen again. This is some good damage, but now that the job's been unloaded, Bly could be losing his lair. He has some units. I know he's putting some roaches, but not the banelings. They're not ready yet. No transfuses because the queens are all dealing with the, with the battle cruiser. So they weren't at all close, and that loss of a lair can be very, very painful. In fact, it is very painful because he has yet to start. He can't go to his +2 carapace, and he also has not started centrifugal hooks. That is the worst thing about losing the lair, and I kind of figure that he just forgot to get centrifugal hooks, as he is banking enough to get it, and certainly that would have been one of the things you would need before that lair dies. He also did not have creep spread off to the right side, so very quickly Bunny passes the creep spread here, goes on top of 2 bases, instantly gets knocked down. Bly's gonna try and hold on as best he can. He does have a similar supply overall, and down 20 supply with creep spread. All it takes is a good surround, and that will do the trick. But he's bleeding out units left and right. These roaches over here aren't even contributing. The supply is really not accurate. It's the best way. And he lost all those mutas he was slowly building up to. It looks like with this combo punch of the drop and the attack, Bunny will in fact take the 3-1 over Bly in the European server qualifier. Having a better time against Bly than Fantasy did, that's for sure. Bly also lost a spawning pool, which I didn't realize, and I guess he didn't either, so he's been forced to build non-stop roaches anyways. These are not going to pair up well against Bunny. GG. Well done. Bunny has to wait so damn long.